Hi, I am Sean Jazz Stevens, and I'm here to give you guys a review of a few films, starting with the first one, and I'm going to break these into segments. So, we're going to talk about the first one. It's the most recent movie I saw. It is the 2019 brand new movie, The Joker, or just Joker. It is. It was directed by Todd Phillips, who also directed a lot of the Zach Galifianakis films, a lot of the Hangovers, Due Date, which is a very underrated movie, by the way, starring Zach Galifianakis and Robert Downey Jr. prior to the Iron Man thing. But Joker was a film that I think before I even got to see it, now I had waited, actually I saw it the day before, the day it came out, which is Friday. Normally I will see them on Thursday, but the hype that went on with before it even came out was absolutely astronomical. My wife told me to be careful going to the theater to see the movie, and I said, for what? It's just a movie. And she told me about how they're predicting it to the outrage and how it's going to cause mayhem and craziness. And first I want to say that's absolute nonsense. I think in all of the all-time movies, there's only been really one shooting major that I know of, and that was during The Dark Knight, and that had nothing to do with The Dark Knight or the Batman movie. It had to do with a lunatic with a gun who went into a theater and shot people up. It had nothing to do with the movie itself. All right? So that getting out of the way, let's get to this movie review of Joker. So, as I said, the director, Todd Phillips, directed movies such as The Hangover, and he also did Old School, which features a lot of Will Ferrell kind of characters. So he's got a lot of great chemistry as far as comedy goes. Joker, although it has a comedic name, I guess, if anything, because it's Joker, but it's really not a funny movie. It's not meant to be funny. And I think my issue with this film and the people who have an issue with it, I think is because people just aren't clearly understanding who the Joker is, what the Joker's about. And quite frankly, I mean, why can't we have a movie about supervillains? Why does everything have to be about the superheroes? Because you see, when it comes to, movies like, the Joker or the Avengers or the Justice League, I want to point out the fact that when you have a superhero, like in this case we're talking about Joker, with Batman, we have had several adaptations of Batman over the years. We've had several Batmans, but we've had a couple people playing the part of Joker at part of a Batman movie. But my question is why is it a big deal to feature a supervillain? Why can't we have a backstory on those supervillains? Is it really that bad to have two sides of a story? Because you see, here's the thing. I like things that make sense. I like films that make sense. I'm a filmmaker. I love fantasy, and I love all kinds of aspects. I love comics. And the thing I think people forgetting about things like about Joker is he is the yin to Batman's Wang. Okay? Yang, whatever. Okay? Wang, Yang, get it? Funny. Anyway, Joker is a character in the comic series. He's a very violent, dangerous, deranged, insane individual. And for so many years and so many adaptations of this character, we don't really know, why is Joker the way he is. Is he like Nicholson? Is he a gangster like he was portrayed by Nicholson in the 89 variation of Batman? Or was he like, Heath Ledger, who's up until now, I'd say he would be the king of the Jokers right now. But to be honest with you, we say he's the king of the Jokers just because he won an Oscar for it, being the Joker. However, let's not forget about the series that was on TV back in the 60s, where Cesar Romero was the Joker, and he had several different showings. He was there a lot. He was probably the Joker more than any other Joker. Other than maybe Mark Hamill, who did the voice for the Joker during the animated movies and so forth, which he does a great job with that. Who knew that Luke Skywalker, the most bravest Jedi in the galaxy, would be the greatest voice for one of the nastiest supervillains of all time. Anyway, we're talking about Joker 2019. I don't want to get too far off track. So that's kind of the basis. First, so I don't really have a problem with them having a movie about a supervillain for a change. Quite frankly, I like things that make sense. I want to be told why the Joker is a lunatic. If you can tell me how and show me, maybe I'll have an understanding of where the Joker comes from. And I don't see any reason why we can't have a supervillain movie. You know what? I said this to my wife, the lovely Daria Vengeance, that, if they came out with a Bane movie or a Doomsday movie or something like that, I would be down for that. I would love to hear the backstories of Bane and Doomsday, to hear, how they get to be. And for those of you guys who don't know who Bane and Doomsday are, they are also supervillains. I think the issue what people are having is the fact that we're giving a movie about a supervillain. So what? We've had several movies over the years with other movies that aren't comic book movies where we sensationalize a villain. Plain and simple. The Goodfellas, okay? The Goodfellas is probably one of the greatest movies of all time, right? A lot of people will say that. But what is The Goodfellas about? It's about the gangsters, right? The mob. And they're committing a lot of crime, a lot of violence, killing women, killing each other, killing other people, whacking people. They're villains, okay? Cops are looking for them because they're bad guys. But that's okay. That's acceptable. That doesn't cause mayhem and craziness. But when we have the Joker, who is a supervillain in a comic book series, then we have an issue. So I just have an issue with people making something out to be it's not. It's a comic book movie about a supervillain. Give us more of those. I don't have a problem with that. And people need to stop, it's a movie, people. It's a movie. It's not rocket science, and it's not a psychological thing. It's a movie. You go to a movie to be entertained. And did this movie entertain me? Yeah, it did. So let's talk about the movie, even though I've been talking about it. So I want to talk first about the performance by Joaquin Phoenix, whatever you want to call him. To me, he will always be Lee Phoenix, because that's how I was introduced to Lee Phoenix back in the day. But I do know he's Joaquin Phoenix. He's the younger brother of the legendary River Phoenix. And the reason I bring that up is because I have noticed with a lot of Phoenix's movies, talking about Joaquin Phoenix, that he usually, if you want to look back at all of the characters he portrays, he does a lot of different variations things. He likes to portray a lot of historical people, like he did a great job in Walk the Line, and several movies like that where he played Johnny Cash and things like that there. But also, he also plays the kind of misunderstood, kind of bad boy, kind of misunderstood kind of character really, really well. And I'm wondering if a lot of that has to do with his background. Leaf, or Joaquin Phoenix, like I said, he's the brother of River Phoenix, and if they were both brought into the Hollywood and the movie business by their parents. To be honest with you, when I was looking into, I love learning about different actors and different backgrounds and stories and stuff like that, and I'm a connoisseur for different things, and in variation stories I've heard, he had a pretty rough upbringing, and so did River. River made it public that he had kind of a topsy-turvy kind of a childhood where they would move around a lot and had people looking for them and all kinds of other crazy things. And, when you have that kind of environment growing up, that's going to do a little psychological stuff to you. And the other thing on top of that is, I want to remind people, and it's a sad thing, what happened to his brother River is a tragedy, and it's sad. It's a case of, a very talented young man who was huge into movies, who was doing a fantastic job of everything, and had a very bright, promising future ahead of him. Unfortunately, he fell into the drugs and the alcohol that a lot of entertainment people get into. Because it's accessible, I guess you'd say. It's accessible from people younger, and then they'll give them whatever they want. They want to be cool. And unfortunately, the drugs and the alcohol is what led to River Phoenix losing tragically his young life at a young age. But what people forget maybe is that Joaquin Phoenix, back when he was Leaf, was the one that made the 911 call to report that his brother had overdosed in front of the Viper Room, which is Johnny Depp's club, which is what happened with River Phoenix. But I wanted to, the reason I'm bringing all this up is because I believe that when it comes to what Joaquin Phoenix does, the roles he portrays, I have a strong feeling he likes to play these kind of misfit characters and these kind of misunderstood characters. I believe maybe he's dealing with a lot of those things portrayed, and he's comfortable being kind of the outcast in these roles because he probably feels like an outcast. He had to call on his older brother's overdose. That's a tough thing. And his brother was a really well-loved guy in Hollywood. So, we don't really know. I don't really know much about Leaf's early childhood. I don't really know why he changed his name from Leaf to Joaquin, because I can pronounce Leaf a lot better than Joaquin Phoenix, and I apologize if I'm butchering his name. No disrespect. I think he's a very talented guy. I like the Leaf name better, I guess. It's easier for me to pronounce, and it's original, like River. Anyway. So he did a great job in this Joker film, and one of the first things that this movie that I took away from the film is the aspect of mental health that is touched on a lot in this film. Who is the Joker? What is the Joker? He's kind of I think anybody who would know anything about the Joker knows he's kind of insane. He's kind of crazy. Okay, Joker is. In the comic book series, in the movie series, we all know that he's a ticking time bomb. He's irrational, and he just does things on impulse. This movie here, they showed more about the backstory of who the Joker is, what he's about, why he is what he is. It talks about how he battles with mental illness. I'm trying to do this so I'm not spoiling a lot of things within the film, but I think what's good here is the slow burn of the unraveling of who the Joker is, okay? And what do I mean by that? So, one of my favorite horror films of all time is the Rob Zombie's version of Halloween. And I know a lot of people like the John Carpenter version, which I also have a lot of respect for, and I like that one too. But what I liked about Rob Zombie's Halloween is the backstory of why Michael Myers, not an excuse, but a little bit of a hint of why Michael Myers kind of goes insane. Okay, what led up to that? And in this movie here, The Joker, we kind of have that element again right here. We see that a guy, here's the Joker. Prior to Joker, he's simply anyway. He's the Joker, okay? Joker's Joker. But in this case here, the Joker is kind of dealing with mental health issues where he has a laughing disorder when he gets nervous. And I think I'm actually very familiar with that. My mother had such a condition. I don't actually know if that's an actual mental illness. I think it's definitely a reaction. It's a nervous reaction. It's a very common thing for people to deal with. People who kind of are in tense situations will laugh. My mother had this issue in real life, and to be honest with you, and because of that, I look at things a little lighter than other things. Someone falls down, I might laugh or chuckle before I'll ask them how they are, but I'll make sure they're okay and I'll help them up. But in the same sense, that nervous laugh is there. That's not really part of anything really for me, but my mother had this. I don't think it's to the extent of this Joker character, but I mean, this movie kind of builds up to that. And in this film, we see that when he's denied care, proper care, and proper treatment, that's when he really falls off the wagon, so to speak. And we also know, we come to find out a lot of different things about his background and things that he was told turned out not to be true by people he thought he could trust. And in this movie, he's greatly bullied by a lot of people. Co-workers are nasty to him. He's jumped. I mean, it's in the trailer. You see him getting attacked. It's not a spoiler, really. But, I mean, he's greatly misunderstood, greatly mistreated up most of the beginning of the movie. And even when he finally kind of semi-snaps, it's really not in the sense that he's trying to be malicious. In my opinion, he was kind of trying to do the right thing. He had the nervous laugh for one thing. But on top of that, he might have saved a life by doing what he did. And then again, he was being, assaulted himself, and then he granted took it to an extreme measure. But sometimes that's what had to happen in that scene. Those of you guys who saw the movie know what I'm talking about. And I'm not justifying that that's an acceptable thing, but it would be considered self-defense. And if it wasn't for him, kind of acting this way, who knows what would have happened on that train other than what happened to him. The other thing is also a lot of people talking about how, violent it is, how crazy it is, but the only time he really loses it is, only a few scenes, and it's because he's greatly abused, if you would, annoyed and tormented by people, co-workers, family, other people. In this movie, we see Joker wants to be a stand-up comic, which is consistent with the story of the Joker, but and he has the mental illness like the Joker, but this whole thing about again, this goes back to people making out to be bigger than it is. It's really not that big of a deal. It wasn't over the top violent. It did have some violence in it. In all honesty, if it's a movie about the Joker, and I know as much about the Joker as a lot of other people do, I was expecting a lot worse, to be honest with you. If you guys know anything about the Joker in the comic book series, I'm not even talking about the movies, what we've seen so far. In the comic series, the Joker is a very dangerous, derived man. Or, well, whatever. I mean, he's manipulative. I mean, he's constantly abusing Harley Quinn. People don't really make that connection a lot. I think it's something you should probably take a notice of. The fact that he is kind of abusive to Harley Quinn, she puts up with it because that's kind of her condition. That the women are like that. They're abused and they kind of stuck to that. That's kind of what the magic is between Harley Quinn and the Joker, or Mr. J as she likes to call him. Then on top of that, with the Joker, he's done some very vile things in the comic series, let alone the movie. The movies have not even touched on the Joker's nastiness, okay? I don't care what any of one of the renditions of the storyline in any of the movies so far, this portrayal of the Joker towards the end when he actually took the part of the Joker and took on the persona and became rose to be who he is, that's kind of what we should have been seeing all along instead of this candy-ass stuff that we saw prior. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Nicholson or Ledger or any of those guys, or Leto. They all did great jobs, but all honesty, the Joker's not... Yeah, he cracks jokes at the worst times, but he's a violent, dangerous comic book villain. And people don't know that because he's... Like, for example, Jack Nicholson, when he portrayed the Joker in 90 or 89 or whatever, he was kind of portrayed as like a mob boss kind of a thing, running the mob and all those types of things, right? In The Dark Knight, Heath Ledger's Joker, he was more of a, I want to call him a terrorist, but he was kind of, put war on everybody and put war on, people in general. He was a blackmailist kind of a thing, but he is a terrorist, basically. And that's kind of what I took away from the Heath Ledger Joker. And he's kind of, like, again, lunatic. And then we had the Leto Joker we saw in the Suicide Squad, which wasn't a lot of it because it wasn't really about the Joker, but we see that's kind of, that's the Joker in that portrayal. Kind of goofy, kind of, but violent a little bit, okay? But this Joker, towards the end, when he actually starts becoming the Joker, is closer to what I know of the Joker from the series. There's some very memorable moments from the comic book series I'm remembering that was so vile that the Joker. I mean, you can go look at this stuff. I don't care. It's not even the movie, but the Joker's responsible for the death of a Robin. He killed Jason, okay, which messed with Bruce Wayne a lot for the rest of his time period. But the Joker killed one of the Robins when he was younger. So that's just the tip of it. He kills his own guys when they don't do what he's supposed to do in very violent ways. I've seen him use everything. I mean, the gun, yeah, sometimes, but he's very effective with a crowbar as well, smashing in people's faces. He's a nasty individual. There's a series called The Killing of the Joke, the killer joke, Joker killing, whatever. The Killing Joke is the name of the series, and actually there's a movie they made of it. I haven't watched the movie because I'm afraid they're going to butcher it. But The Killing Joke was a series where a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, Batman's finally going to kill someone. It's against his morals to kill someone. Just beat them up and not kill them." Well, the Joker came close to dying because Batman beat him so badly that he couldn't control himself. That we don't know whether or not he did or didn't kill him in the end. I'm going to go on the limb and say he didn't because the Joker kept on coming back years later. So I'm going to have to say that probably did not happen. But, that's kind of how far he's pushed the Batman. And in this movie, I know I'm going off on the limb about giving you the backstory of the Joker because I think it's important to understand who the Joker is before you can kind of talk about the movie. And when I went into this movie expecting to see, the Joker stuff from the comic book series, because when I was hearing about all these, the riots are going to start up because of this movie, it's going to be ultra violent, it's going to be very disturbing. I'm expecting the Joker to be the Joker from the series that I know, where he's, beaten people to death with a crowbar. He's, killed teenagers. He's done all these crazy, nasty things. He's abused women. I mean, he's a nasty dude, the Joker. He's sick because he doesn't care. But that's kind of what the Joker's persona is. So when they made this movie, they did a really good job showing the slow burn of how he kind of got pushed to the edge. And he finally has enough and he just snaps. I don't know how it took so long, but it did. I'm talking about before, this movie takes place probably in the 70s maybe, 60s maybe, time period. And what I'm thinking is, because this also for the first time shows how old the Joker actually is compared to the Batman, because young Bruce Wayne makes a cameo because his father is seen in the movie and there's kind of a storyline there, but Bruce Wayne is actually shown in the movie as a young kid. In this movie, Joker is probably in his late 20s maybe, early 30s. And I think it was the first time we were told that the Joker is that much older than Batman, because that's kind of how that works. I know prior to this film, we were kind of led to believe that the Joker and the Batman were kind of around the same era, but that this film shows that it's not the case, as Batman is so much younger. He's probably about 9 or 10 years old in this movie, and the Joker is at least in his late 20s, early 30s. So there's that. I found that interesting myself. So that being said, and then the build up to he finally loses it. He finally kind of takes over the paint. Where's the paint? Where's the hair? And I guess one of my problems with the Nicholson Batman was, this how the Batman creating kind of the Joker was not ever part of what that storyline was about. In fact, in this film, even though they showed kind of something that portrayed, kind of connected the two, they kind of did a really good job separating Batman or Bruce Wayne from the Joker. Granted, his father was, this took place when he was just 9 or 10 years old, but clearly his parents were just barely alive then. And they were killed in this, the inevitable happens, and it's really not the Joker who does that like it's perceived in the movie, in the 89 version. And in this film, he's kind of affected people in the sense of that. But here's the other thing that this film does. It kind of talks about the establishment and a lot of political messages in this film. And I think we could have done away with a lot of that. But in the same sense, it's the Joker. And the Joker is going to lose his mind and be, what he is. And the other thing is the Joker did inspire a lot of people. In the comic book realm, I'm talking. He had a great deal of people who was well respected, the Joker, because he was crazy. He was a lunatic. Was it respect or was it fear? Probably a lot more of the fear, because they know that the Joker has no problem killing them if they don't do what he wants them to do. And, he doesn't have that kind of conscience, that kind of thing that stops and says, hey, is this a good idea or not? Joker just does it on impulse. And I think that's what it is about the Joker. So I wanted to do that there. And the woman who plays his mother in the film, which is, very basic, barely really functional in this movie. But I think it was important to tell the story of the Joker to, talk about the mother. And then, there's a revelation there, too. And then I guess the other thing is really how alone the Joker really was. And how sometimes when you're truly alone in the world, or you feel you're alone in the world, it can drive you insane. And I think that's a lot of what this movie comes out to be. The Joker is kind of a loner, kind of feels alone in the world. And, he loses it, finally. And that's kind of how that perceives. So I gave you guys a lot of backstory on the Joker, and I gave you a lot of talk about different pieces. I'm trying not to spoil anything for the moviegoers who haven't seen it yet. I encourage you people to see the movie, because if you like comic books and you like, that kind of action film, you should see it. But also, if you like a drama, it's actually not a bad film either. Because it's more serious and darker than any other comic book movie that's come out thus far. It's not Deadpool and it's not Batman. It's kind of an even going field. Okay, so I would say go see the Joker. I say the Joker it's a really decent movie. I enjoyed my time in the film. Knowing what I know about the human services field, I myself have a degree in human services, as well as being the wrestling icon that I am. And I also, have experience with life and stuff like that with these types of things, dealing with these things and seeing these things on a regular basis. And this film did a great job talking about those things and bringing them to light, where a lot of movies would shy away from that. So I give them credit for that. And the fact that the director, Todd Phillips, made this film, and it wasn't, The Hangover, and it wasn't Due Date. It didn't have that cheesy kind of sarcastic humor. It had a serious, dark film, and I think he did a great job with that. That being that, he also did, the other movie he did just recently was, A Star Is Born, with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. He directed that as well, and he won an Oscar for this, I believe it was, or a nomination or something. But what I liked about this is this shows that this guy has a range to direct. Because if you can go from directing things like, the goofy kind of an aspect of like The Hangover, but then you can go ahead and do this serious kind of dark film that is anti-hero stuff. I think that this guy's got a good future as a director. And I also want to point out the fact that I think Joaquin Phoenix is probably one of the most underrated person in Hollywood. I think the guy has very, very good taste in the films that he takes on. I think that it's like I said earlier, and before I started this whole thing, I said that I always respect the fact that the roles that he chooses to take on are challenging, and they can be, some of them are harder than others. And I don't know if it's because he wants to avoid being typecasted as, a drama guy, a comedy guy, or this, that, or the other thing, or if it's because he's had such, a messed up youth that he wants to express that by portraying somebody else or escaping that by anybody else. So there's that there. So that is my Joker review. I try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a like if you want. What movies else? I see movies on a regular basis. This is my first really... I'm going to start trying to do these reviews a little bit more often, because one of the things I hate more is when people waste money on a movie, because I worked in the film business too on the inside as a theater person, and I would tell people what movies to spend their money on, what ones not to. I worked at a video store. I used to have people return the movies that they brought up to me if I knew they were going to be bad, because out of respect for them, I don't want to see someone waste their money on a film that I know is going to, ruin their time. You want to watch a movie to be entertained, not be miserable. So I will always give you guys 100% good, honest feedback. It is from me, so it's just my opinion. So that's my review on the Joker 2019. I would say go see it. It's a really decent film. Don't believe all the hype, and don't go into it thinking this is going to be this bloodbath. I mean, yes, there's violence in it, but I think you'll when you see it, you'll understand that they have a purpose. It's not just for the hell of it. So, thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it. Have a great night.